Hi everyone, my name's Tom Hadfield. I'm from Message.io, which I will not be talking about. Much to my wife's puzzlement, I am passionate about interoperability in the bot world. And what excites me about bringing together an industry group like this is the opportunity to talk about sharing best practices and common standards that will lead to this unified ecosystem. Because today, the messaging ecosystem is a series of walled gardens. It looks a lot like the early 90s with CompuServe and AOL and Prodigy. Also walled gardens. So developers today are building natively for every one of the platforms to create a first-class experience. The enterprise ecosystem looks much the same. I have this hypothesis that the messaging ecosystem is inevitably and permanently fragmented, but not necessarily ununified, right? Because I think through the kind of conversations we're having in these breakout groups around standards and best practices, we can create a unified messaging ecosystem that looks like this, where the platforms are individual nodes on the network. The messaging clients are not only browsers, but there are some similarities between how the messaging clients render compared to how browsers rendered in the 90s, and I think there are lessons to be learned about how to treat small variations in UI. This is not how the slide should look, but it is funny given the topic. So in the 90s, of course, you remember if you were building a first-class experience for Netscape, you were kind of obliged to put the optimized for Netscape or Internet Explorer. But the good news is that if you look back throughout human history, every communication technology that has survived has trended towards interoperability. And so it is natural that in the early stage of the evolution of a new technology, like the browsers in the 90s and messaging and bots today, that they diverge as companies innovate, but ultimately they converge as best practices get shared and make a fragmented ecosystem more unified. Because, and this is what I'm most excited about, we can create a world together where bots work everywhere, where every bot works on every messaging platform. Now let's just have a moment of sympathy or empathy for RTM at StatSpot or Rachel at Kip, because if they want to reach the maximum number of users for their enterprise bot, they have to build natively for 30 different messaging platforms that have opened up their APIs after seeing the success of Amir and his team at Slack. And it's worth just pointing out, it may not be obvious, that there is almost no overlap in the user base between enterprise messaging platforms in particular. So if you've built a bot for Slack, then when you build for HipChat or for Teams, you are reaching new users. That's not necessarily true in the consumer space, where SMS is ubiquitous, where Facebook is ubiquitous. And if you're trying to reach Kik users or Line users or Telegram users, there is a subset of that group. So I'm excited tomorrow in the breakout groups to come up with a framework or a process as an industry for talking about industry collaboration and common standards and best practices. And I know there's many people in the room who share an interest in that. And have experienced that in previous waves with social and digital identity, etc. One easy solution would be for a collaboration around bot directory submissions, 30 different icon sizes. Another topic that I'd like to talk about is creating provisioning APIs, so that it's much easier when you're using an authoring tool like Automat or Howdy to provision your bot on every one of the platforms that they integrate with. When we talk about convergence, we don't mean that everything should be the same. That if one platform is learning something about ephemeral messages, for example, that Don was just sharing, then that learning should be incorporated across the community. And the same is true not just of UI, but also of the API methods themselves. One other topic that I'm sure many people in the room want to talk about relates to compliance, data security, and privacy policy. Currently, every platform requires bot developers to sign up to different compliance and data security standards. These are pipe dreams right now, but let's take a longer-term view. Imagine a global user identity for the messaging system where your data stays with you as you interact with the same bot on different platforms. Imagine a global payment method or even a payment method, but a global payment method where you're entering your credit card not once on every individual platform, but in one global wallet that works with bots on any platform. So that's what I mean when I talk about a unified messaging ecosystem. I really appreciate you taking the time. My name's Tom Hadfield from Message.io and looking forward to the breakout groups on this tomorrow. Thank you.